Hi everybody, welcome back to the Introduction to Climate Change course. In this lesson, we are going to continue our discussion about how climate change impacts all different parts of the world, and we're going to shift away from glaciers and tropical rainforests because those are kind of hard to really visualize and experience, and we're going to instead answer the question, how can climate change impact us humans, especially humans in populated areas like suburbs or cities or towns. And the main idea here is that even though the things that we might associate with climate change are all around the world and on the opposite side of the world, in some cases, in the North and South Pole, those have ripple effects that will hit every part of the world and will affect every human. And especially depending on where you live, you might already be experiencing this now. So the easiest answer when you talk about climate change in humans is probably natural disasters, because natural disasters will be more frequent and they will cause things like more floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, landslides, and other extreme weather events. And this puts a lot of lives in danger. Because imagine being in a town where all the houses are flooded and you have nowhere to go, or in a house during an earthquake. And all of these natural disasters often take many lives, and not only that, they also have ripple effects to people who may not have had their houses destroyed or may not have died in a natural disaster, because these are very expensive problems to fix. Imagine, for example, paying to fix all those houses that were flooded in that picture in the top left. And imagine having to feed and restore buildings, other infrastructure, and also pay for future ways to prevent damage done. And although all of these are ways to fix the damage that has already been done or maybe prevent damage that we know is coming, it doesn't really get at the root of the issue. And in future lessons, we'll talk about how we can get to the root of the issue. And another way that climate change is going to affect humans is through food. Now, not all of us farm, but pretty much all of us, it's safe to say that you probably eat food that was grown from a farm many miles away from where you actually live. And now what this does is climate change will impact a lot of different factors that contribute to the crop yield, and the crop yield needs to be high so it can feed as many people as possible. Now, these effects are, for example, weather patterns that will get less predictable, the soil quality oftentimes is going to drop in many different parts of the country, the pests that eat crops are going to flourish, and they like the heat, and so there are going to be more of them. And droughts and other extreme weather events are going to either all out just wipe out some crops and some entire harvests, or they're going to make the crop yield very, very small. And to put it simply, the crop yield is just how much food you produce from a harvest. So for example, if you plant a banana tree and you get 3 or 4 bananas, the crop yield for that tree is 4 bananas in a harvest. And those are just made up numbers, but that's just to understand what a crop yield is. Now, what makes this problem even more complicated is that not only are we affected by climate change as far as farming, and not only is it going to have very bad consequences, farming also is going to reduced crop yields are also going to affect the economy again, as in the prices that we pay for food. So normally when there's plenty of corn, for example, and it'll be priced somewhere that's fair, where as many people as possible can afford it, and because the company has a lot of corn to go around, they don't mind making a little bit of money per each bit of corn. However, if we take a look at a situation where there's a lot less corn, the people who are buying it might see that there's not a lot, and they might say, you know what, you should give me the corn because I'll pay $5 or $7 or even $10 for it. And if there's enough people who are willing to pay, for example, $10 for it, well, that piece of corn is going to go to whatever group of people can pay the most amount of money for it. So in this case, it's $10. So because the amount of corn has dropped so much, the price of corn has gone up a lot too, because there's a lot less to go around, and so it is a lot more competitive to get one. Now, this is going to mean that people who can't afford it are going to miss out on a lot of food, and also the prices are going to go a lot way up. So this is going to make, you know, the amount of money that you have less valuable, for example, because if you only have $2, that went from being equal to a piece of corn to being equal to a fifth of a piece of corn, right? And this is not good. Now, the thing that makes this even more complicated is that we also contribute to emissions by farming. Now, we might think that something like a banana just comes from the store, but in reality, there's a lot of steps that come before that, and all of those steps are pretty carbon intensive. And so we can do an activity to see, you know, how exactly do we get some of our favorite foods. So bananas start off just being grown on trees in most countries in mainly South America. We can just use Colombia as an example for now because they're one of the major exports. But they grow on the trees and they're picked, and then after they're put into a sorting facility where they're packaged, and that facility usually runs on fossil fuels. After they're packaged, they are shipped into a boat, and that boat also probably runs on some sort of fuel. And then that boat needs to travel all the way from where it was made in South America to, let's say, some northern city in the United States. And the path that I drew on this map is about 2,000 miles, so that's a lot of emissions, and that's a pretty big distance to go. And then once it arrives there, it's not done because the trucks need to actually ship it and bring it into the store and unpack it and pack it in there. And then after you buy it from the store, you're going to refrigerate it until you eat it, which is going to take even more energy. And something to realize is that for a lot of different foods, that step of refrigeration, you need to do it on the boat, on the store shelves, and in the truck. So the whole time that it's out and about, it's going to need to be kept at an exact temperature so it doesn't go bad. And what this shows is that climate change is everything that we do is going to be tied to carbon emissions and therefore climate change. And that's because our world really runs on fossil fuels. Most things that we do in modern life require energy, and the energy source that we use pretty much everywhere is fossil fuels like oil. And when you burn this and emit it, it becomes greenhouse gases. And that's how, like we went over a few lessons ago, that is how climate change has gotten to this point. And the temperature is going to continue rising as long as we keep doing things that require a lot of emissions, and as long as we kind of do not take any drastic steps to change how we power the things we use. And in future lessons, we're going to talk more about how to get into the root of this issue, and how to, start maybe introducing climate change solutions. But until then, one activity you can try is to pick one of your favorite foods. It could be a fruit or a vegetable, or a grain like rice, for example. And in your journal, just do some research to figure out the steps that it takes from where it's grown to reach your house. And you can answer questions like, does it have to grow in a certain season? Does it have to be refrigerated? Does it have to travel really far? And what happens if there's, what type of natural disasters or different, farming conditions can affect the crop yield? And hopefully this will help you be in touch with a little more of how what we do as humans every single day, it contributes to emitting greenhouse gases. And like I said, in the next lesson, we're going to talk more about solving this problem and solutions.